Welcome back. You're watching Commodity Champions, and we have our guest with us. And as you were pointing out, Ajay, that the increase in commodity price rise has led to a value chain price rise too. What is your sense on the kind of wheat price rise that we have seen, and how much and how long before we see the rise in product prices?
So I think wheat products is a little delayed pass-through. So, things like flour, atta, within a month or 15, 20 days, they do react. And as far as biscuits and things like that are concerned, there are other commodities that get into it, like, fat and sugar. And so they take a very balanced approach, and they amend their prices on the basis of other commodities that they are consuming.
Ajay, you also mentioned that we've seen 25 to 30% of an increase in wheat prices already. How much of a further price rise are we expecting from these current levels?
So I think we are at the top end of this, price cycle, and not more than 3 to 5% should be seen if government really plays its cards well and makes the right announcements and delivers as per its intention in the next 2-3 months. That's what the market is waiting for. The more delayed the government announcements on OMSs and open sale, the more, the price rise will continue. And that is the only thing that can currently cool off the run in the markets, I would say.
All right. Carlos, what's your sense? I still want to ask about the value chain here. And while the wheat prices have been surging, what has been the case for bread, biscuit and various other products that the international markets consume? What kind of a price rise have we seen there? Has that impacted the demand in any sense? And what kind of a further price rise are we readying for ourselves?
Well, it's very difficult to be very general about rice prices for those products because they change country by country. Everything is different, but we've seen significant price rises. Roughly speaking, the cost of wheat is anything between 5-10% of the cost of a loaf of bread, but it varies massively. It's not the same a premium loaf of bread in central London than in Egypt. So it's very hard to track across the globe. But generally speaking, yes, those price increases have been passed on to the consumers so far. However, I will expect that in a recessionary environment, that's going to become much more difficult. So food processors will find it much more difficult to convince supermarkets to push increasing costs to the consumers.
Carlos, as Ajay was pointing out, that the Indian government will perhaps need to do something in the next 2 or 3 months to ensure that there is affordability and availability. What is your sense in the global markets on what other governments, countries will perhaps need to do to ensure that there is availability?
Well, unfortunately, over the last 12 months, but especially in the last 10 or so, we've seen many countries increasing export taxes, those exporting countries that export food. In some cases, they have been increasing export taxes. It was the case of Russia before they had a record crop. It was a case of Indonesia when they banned actually exports of palm oil, and a few other countries, Algeria, for example, banning exports of food, etc. So I think, if I don't think it's likely that we're going to see another 12 months of panic, but I think we're likely to see 1 or 2 more examples of countries trying to protect the domestic market, trying to contain food price inflation inside the country in detriment of food price inflation elsewhere. Hopefully, we already passed, the peak of panic in the market, but I think we will see still a few other cases.
All right. Sumit, what's your sense for the Indian markets itself, because the kind of export benefit that India was getting and the lower crop that we saw because of March heat wave, a lot of wheat went to private players, not so much to the government. And there is a bit of a concern here right now. How would you look at the Indian market situation, and is it a cause for worry? Would you be concerned?
I would like to highlight a few key critical points. Number one, Government of India has a stock of 22.5 million tons. That's on 1st of October. And with a run rate of approximately 2 million tons going for next 6 months, Government of India will have less than 10 million tons of stock with them on 1st of April. What does it mean? It means Government of India on 1st of April will be totally dependent on the new crop planting crop development, and the production. So a country of 1.35 billion people cannot be completely dependent on the crop cycle because weather is uncertain, global availability is not that easy. So we are in a tough position, and that is where uncertainty always lead to reaction from the prices side. And that is where we are witnessing in the wheat markets, where prices are reacting to tight supply and demand situation. Number two, our domestic demand is expanding because of consumption, income increase, urbanization, all the major reasons. And as people move from rural part of the country to urban part of the country, wheat consumption goes up. So this dislocation of supply and demand is not for a year. We are going to face tight wheat S&D for years to come, and it is going to keep prices volatile. We have a lot of sporting events world over in months to come. We have general election in 2024. We have many elections in country in 2023. So wheat, as you have mentioned, is a golden grain. It is a wheat is consumed by maximum number of consumers in the country. So it is going to be a very tight rope. And as Ajay ji has mentioned, government will need to make announcements in a timely manner to keep the volatility and price escalation in check.
Ajay, how do you look at the import duty cut then? I mean, at 40% currently, how much, how soon, what impact are you expecting?
So I really don't think, there will be real imports happening. But I think if the government is wise enough and it's able to reduce the duty down to a zero, at least it will open up another gate, and we won't see a run-up continuing. So that should cool off sentimentally the markets, at least in South India, because, not before January, the first vessel can really come into South India from Australia or any other part. But I think government should act fast and make some announcements or clarify its position, whether it might look at private imports in this financial year or no.
All right, so the import perhaps will come to private companies yet again, and at least a sentiment change is what it could bring into the Indian markets. Carlos, what are you expecting now globally when we look at wheat? Australia is one to watch out for. Argentina, as you said, Russia has a good crop as of now at least, and there is some wheat into the international markets. Going forward, what would you see as a big opportunity or a challenge when it comes to wheat trade globally?
Well, of course, we need to replace wheat in the countries that will normally import from Ukraine. So these are countries, Northern Africa, Southeast Asia, even like Bangladesh and some Middle Eastern countries, and of course, Turkey. Now, much of those countries could, switch to Russian wheat. Yes, but we will need also wheat from other countries. Now, as you mentioned, Australia is producing a third consecutive bumper crop, so production there is very, very good. Normally, La Nina conditions benefit Australian rainfall, therefore more wheat production, but exports out of Australia are maximized already. So Australia cannot at the moment export as much as there is availability of wheat in the country. Argentina, unfortunately, is down. La Nina has been affecting Argentina, so the crop there is a disaster. And then we need to look at the next year's Northern Hemisphere crops. As I mentioned, Russia might see a big fall in production back to average levels. Unfortunately, in Ukraine, we are looking at a 30% area reduction and a reduction of yield. So as the situation stands today, we're going to see the destruction of Ukrainian agriculture. And then the EU might be, if plantings have been relatively good, however, in the US, they're planting in drought conditions.
Okay.
So a lot of concerns there. I think for some countries that might produce under normal conditions, this market is great, and they are producing well above cost of production. So hopefully, and hopefully the EU will recover. The EU production will recover to normal levels, and of course the EU is the largest, as a bloc, is the largest producer of wheat in the world. So hopefully the EU production can help save the day in the next season.
All right, there's a long list of concerns and some opportunities and hopes as well. But as said by our experts, that just about 3 to 5% of gain is what we can see in prices. I'm at the last 30 seconds, Sumit, but I want to have your last word in. What is your sense on the prices moving forward from here? Not record highs, as Carlos says, but how much?
India, as you have mentioned in your earlier question, thanks to the step on 13th of May, which Government of India took, we are insulated from at least from the price escalation side from the global market point of view.
Okay.
But we have to see that we are dependent on weather, planting season, fertilizer availability, no heat in Feb and March, so that our yield stays good, availability of good alternate grains. Because what we have seen in paddy, there is a drop in production in UP, Bihar, West Bengal, and this is the same pocket where I will say the poorest or the people with the least income stays in the country.
Right.
And this is where our wheat is also going to come. And so we are going to have tight supply and demand situation ahead of us in months to come.
Okay.
And I am in the camp of higher price volatility and potential price escalation if there is no OMSS and import allowance from Government of India. I believe wheat prices will continue to go up. And if you want to have a number, I will say maybe 10% from here in next 3 months.
All right, that does not sound good at all. So the golden grain could actually get more expensive, and that doesn't sound so good, especially for a country like India where we have huge population and a huge demand for wheat as well. But thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us and putting a light on all of those concerns, challenges, and some positives as well. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Commodity Champions. Thank you for watching.